You're making perfect eye contact and nodding, but your eyes have glazed over and you haven't processed a single word they've said. We recognize that listening is the most valuable currency in any relationship, yet putting it into practice remains a constant struggle. While phones and loud rooms are easy targets for our distraction, the internal monologue creates a much deeper, more persistent barrier to connection. This graph illustrates how our cognitive priorities tend to drift during a talk. The effort spent seeking understanding plummets as the energy used to plan our next words surges to take its place. Once you begin drafting that reply, communication effectively ends. You are trapped in your own head, even while standing face-to-face with another person. This internal hijacking usually follows two specific patterns: the advice reflex and the correction reflex. The advice reflex triggers the moment you believe you have a solution to the speaker's problem. You stop absorbing new information and wait for a brief silence to insert your fix. The correction reflex in action. Hearing a single point of disagreement, your brain hits a wall, blocking the rest of the message to build a counterargument. Instead of comprehending the speaker, your cognitive energy is reallocated to drafting your own script. Full comprehension of someone's thoughts or feelings is impossible when your mental resources are occupied by this internal drafting process. Poor listening is rarely a lack of concern. It is a resource allocation failure, where the ego prioritizes our own words over the other person's reality. Overcoming this requires assertive listening, not as a passive state, but as a deliberate, active discipline. We typically associate assertiveness with speaking up, but here it means having the mental fortitude to tell your own brain to be quiet. It requires a forceful effort to suppress the ego and pause the formulation of a response while the other person is still talking. This comparison shows the mechanical objective of the listening before answering technique. On the left, a mind is split. On the right, that drafting impulse is eliminated, reallocating every bit of cognitive power back toward comprehension. This assertive approach acts as a defense mechanism against the biological reflex to dominate the conversation. When the internal monologue is silenced, we finally hear the actual message. Only then can we offer a response that is direct, honest, and caringly connected. However, a final hurdle remains. We have to consider what happens to the brain after we finish our turn to speak. Speaking creates a kind of mental inertia. The brain wants to stay in broadcasting mode and assumes its work is finished once the words are delivered. This loop visualizes the necessary cycle. You have to manually reset the brain back to a state of comprehension the moment your response ends. If you fail to execute that reset, the interaction degrades into two people merely taking turns broadcasting at each other. The next time someone speaks to you, try to catch the exact second your brain starts planning a reply. Pause that thought and return to seeking understanding. Interpersonal connection isn't built by finding the perfect things to say. It is built in the active internal silence required to finally hear.